It's a sometimes vlog. It's a vlog that happens sometimes. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Giant 2B David here. Sorry about the lateness of this, but yeah. Hello, I'm nostalgic here. I remember I said I don't have to. Now I'm just kidding. It's just Giant 2B David. But anyway, yeah. Today we're doing Back to the Future 3. You know, the future is whatever you make of it. So we follow up from the first two movies. Follow back from Back to the Future 2 and whatnot. And again, it stars Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Tom Wilson, and Mary Sternberg and Leah Thompson, all in it. And again, you have the same tropes from the same tropes and stuff from the first one, but this one is always the first one's the best, and this is the third one wraps everything up in a gift box. And this one took place in 1990. Robert Zemeckis, Bob Yale, of course. Universal. I don't own anything. I can only record to sum up everything. But anywho, I saw this Back to the Future when I was 3 or 4, but I saw this in a drive-in theater, so I remember seeing this in the drive-in theater. I remember we had and of course the drive-in was winding down in the time. Of course, they just made a comeback, but I saw this at a drive-in at the time in Concord. Of course, the drive-in just made a comeback anyway, and of course at the time they had the 75th anniversary of Universal. For copyright, I'm only going to show part of it, but obviously they have the 75th black and white of Universal, and I'm not going to play the music, but obviously for copyright, 75 years of Universal Studios. It's one of the older. Universal and Paramount are the oldest two studios. But anyway, they do this, and of course it starts out, and so that's where we are. So anyway, we start off, of course Steven Spielberg produces the movie, and we start off in 1955, right when Marty went back in time, and of course Dr. Brown's trying to record his moment here, and of course we have the famous scene where Marty goes back, and of course Marty comes to get him. And of course that's Universal Studios. And of course it takes off right where Back to the Future 2 takes off, as you know. And he says, I'm back from the future. And so anyway, we skip to Marty giving him, Marty giving him CPR or whatever, and of course we're in the Brown Mansion estate. And of course, Marty has to convince him that he really is him. He went back in time and he got struck by lightning, and talk about they're recapping the movie, and of course he doesn't believe him. And of course he has to show. He sent him a letter, and he reads the letter, and he wants to find out whether or not if he made the history books and stuff. And of course it turns out he's reading the letter to him, and it turns out he died in 1885. Very close to when he got back there, and of course they have to find the DeLorean, and he says, I have to take me back home and stuff and whatnot. And of course they have to find the DeLorean and whatnot. Sorry, I'm doing this for copper, but yeah, he has, shot in the back by Buford Tannen and whatnot. And, obviously I couldn't find this on Peacock for some reason. I don't know why Peacock took it off. But that's free with my service. But anyway, so they he said, all the best stuff is made in Japan. They have a, tit for tat joke and whatnot. And of course they're looking up who Buford Tannen is. Of course, what's going on here with the, he said, well, you look up Buford Tannen, who's Biff's great-grandfather, shot in the back from enemy, like, who's Clara Clayton? And he says, well, we have to go back to, bring you back home. And of course, in 1955, they have comical, he would never, Clint Eastwood, like, who's Clint Eastwood and stuff. And, I might have to do 2 parts to this, but yeah.
Okay, I think we're about ready. I put gas in the tank. The future clothes are packed. Just case, press batteries for your walkie-talkies. Oh, what about that floating device? Hoverboard, all right. Yeah, Doc, it's gonna be a hell of a long walk back to Hill Valley. Still as big as planned. That's where all.
I might have to delay this, but as you can see, he goes back, and of course in the drive in 1955, they actually crashed into a bunch of Indians back then, and of course he gets the fuel line busted, and driving over all that dirt, and wrecks the transmission in the fuel line, and it goes back to the September of 1885, and of course he's being chased by, and of course he gets, he loses his boots, and his boots get eaten by, boots and hat get eaten by a bear. And of course, he gets saved by his great-great-grandfather, or his grandmother, great-great-grandmother, Seamus McFly. And of course, they have the same trope. Oh, I thought you were my mom and whatnot. And of course, it happens to be, happens to be, his great, the first McFly's born in America and whatnot. And of course, you know, as I'm doing a constant recording of you know, but anyway, so he goes back into Hill Valley 1885, and sorry, my battery dying, but anyway, so yeah, where we left off was, yeah, he goes to Hill Valley 1885, and, yeah, so he's at Hill Valley 1885, and he has to walk back. I guess the drive-in theater in 1955 is far enough, pretty far, I guess. But yeah, obviously they repurposed the Universal Studio set, which we've been to. I don't know if you guys saw that in my previous video. So he runs into Mad Dog Cannon as he walks into the famous saloon. And of course they have the same tropes as before, with the same old the same old tropes as before, and and you know, remember, it's all about Clara Clayton, who we don't know yet, and of course they have to, you know, he doesn't like the word Mad Dog. He goes nuts and everything. You know, Thomas F. Wilson, and Dr. Brown saves him, and he says, "I came back. I gave you instructions not to, because that's what he said in his letter. Don't come back to go for me." He comes back, and like, "Well, who's this Clara?" And is, "I don't know who she is," and you know, it's Sturgeon, and of course they have to get back to the future in order to get 88 miles per hour, and of course they don't have the gasoline and stuff.
$80. September 7th. That's this Monday. I wish I'd paid him off. And who's this beloved Clara? I don't know anyone named Clara. I don't know, Doc. I thought maybe she was a girlfriend of yours. Buddy, my involvement in such a social relationship here in 1885 has resulted in the destruction of a space-time continuum. As a scientist, I can never take...
And of course, the mayor comes by and tells him who Clara is. She's the new school teacher for the new school coming into town, and you know, they do their stuff to try to go back to 88 miles per hour. They go, you know, they say, "Oh, let's do a train and do the Clay and Ravine." Of course, it gets changed. Of course, at the time, it's called Shonash Ravine, and of course, then Clara is running on a snake that, you know, that attacked the horses and stuff, and of course, Dr. Brown saves her, and of course, he falls in love with her, and of course, they have, you know, plenty of time to kill. Of course, you know, someone has to get shot, and of course, Buford Tannen has to, you know, he says, "I'm going to show down with you" and stuff. You know, over the $80, you know, $75 for a whiskey and $5 for a shoe horse or something like that. And of course, they have the festival. The clock tower is the crux of this series. You know, Marty kind of intervenes, says, well, and of course he calls him yellow, and that's the whole thing, was Marty has to overcome his chicken paralysis, and you know, instead of Dr. Brown's gonna be you Clint Eastwood and whatnot. Yeah, I don't have Peacock, so it's kind of different from that. And then, obviously Doc is madly in love with Clara, and they have to figure out how to, and if you get a train and go back, go up to 88 miles per hour because nothing else could go back that fast because they didn't have any fuel or anything. And, again, Yellow Belly is kind of like the main thing. And then, and of course, Dr. Brown is courting Clara, and he's like, he realizes that he's from the future, and they're talking, cause they're talking about Jules Verne and whatnot. They're both scientists. Again, I'm limited for time, so I just kind of, he's like, he realized, oh yeah, Jules Verne made me feel like a little boy, because he read it when he was a little boy, and he's talking about the future 84 years when they do the moon landing. And of course, the Tombstone picture changes to Clint Eastwood and stuff, and big man, take on Mad Dog Tannen and whatnot. And then, of course, they have to set the DeLorean on the tracks. Like I said, I'm going over this for time. I don't have much time. I don't know how much when the battery died and whatnot. And but anyway, and of course then he has revealed to Clara, well, I'm from the future, and of course Clara didn't like it. And then of course he's like, because he didn't want to go back with him tomorrow. And of course because he dumped Clara, Dr. Brown gets really, really drunk. And he can't help, or he never gets. He talks about the future, and no one believes him and whatnot. And he can't hold, or he never gets drunk at all. He just rambles on about the future. No one believes him or anything. And it's like I said, I'm stalled for time because of the battery dying, and it's gonna probably die again. And so he dumps Clara, and he's all, and of course then he Marty wakes up and stuff, and of course, he's like, we have to go back. We're like, where? Back to the future. That's the voice of Baloo and Robin Hood, Disney Robin Hood. And of course, Dr. Brown did build a model of the thing that, the time travel, just like in the original movie. Like I said, I'm stalled for time.
Get going. Gentlemen, excuse me, but my friend and I have to catch the train. Can't do you back there. Amen. Amen. Damn it, no!
It's a shootout over $80, and Buford Tannen has to kill people to keep his reputation, I guess. And of course, he counts to 10 to wake him up. And of course, the train is arrived. They have to catch the train. Meanwhile, Clara comes to her senses and tries to chase after him, and of course Marty gets the idea from a Bulletproof Vest from alternate 1985, watching the Clint Eastwood movie, wearing a bulletproof vest. And so like I said, I'm stalled for time. Battery died, and I'm trying to rush the review. And he punches and knocks him out and whatnot.
Roll. No. I thought we could settle this like men. You thought roll.
Of course, Marty does some karate to beat him up, or punches him up, knocks him out. He falls into the manure, just like the same trope from 1955 with the Biff Tannen from that time. And of course, Dr. Brown had Bresto logs. They hold up the train, and they have to hold up the train and whatnot. And old-fashioned train robbery trope. And of course, they have to do that. Like I said, I don't have Peacock with me today.
Just a hold up. It's the science experiment. Stop the train just before you hit the pit track overhead.
Now, of course, in real life, the DeLorean would be destroyed, I think, by a train. And of course, they have to push the train. Meanwhile, Clara Clayton, because of her love of Emmett, follows him. And probably about the before I have time to build it to scale or anything. So, but yeah, then she chases him and whatnot. Again, I'm pressed for time. Marty climbs the speed. Clara gets saved on the train. And yeah, like I'm not looking at the camera because I'm watching the YouTube because I don't have Peacock. I don't have anything timed correctly for some reason. And of course, Marty does return back to 1985, and now it's called Eastwood Ravine because he's supposed to be Clint Eastwood, and of course they advertise Hilldale, and of course a freight train, 1985 freight train comes by that destroys the time machine, and everybody's looking at him funny, and then he runs back to get Jennifer, and she thought it's all a dream, and then encounters Needles, from their previous movie. And of course, we don't want you being called chicken or anything. You know, and of course they referencing Back to the Future 2. Again, I apologize for not focusing on the camera, but yeah, that's where he calls him chicken.
Hey, Needle. Nice. Wheel. Let's see what she can do. Next green line. No thanks. What's the matter? Chicken? Marty, don't. Grab hold of something. Come on!
Stick shift. Anybody remember stick shifts or still know how to drive them?
To race that asshole?
Unless it's the Rolls Royce.
What is the Rolls Royce?
Now, obviously, the future's been changed, because make it what you will. And of course, I go back to the site where the DeLorean was destroyed, and he's like, "Well, he'll never come. He'll never come back." And of course, Dr. Brown comes back in a time machine train, and he marries Clayton, and has two boys, Jules and Vern, after the book author, and of course he hands him the picture of the two of them. He said, "Make it feature whatever you want of it."
Great, Doc. Thanks.
Dr. Brown? I got this note back from the future, and now it's a race.
Of course it's a race.
But what does that mean?
It means your future hasn't been written yet. No one can. Your future is whenever you make it. So make it a good one. Both of you. We will, Doc. Stand back. All right, boys, buckle up. Hey, Doc.
Question is, how did he get back to the future in the first place?
Back to the future. No. Already in there.
And of course, ZZ Top is that, but yeah, that ends the great trilogy. Make it feature what will be. So, the comedy, sci-fi. I had a feeling maybe he took parts of the DeLorean. I don't know, the DeLorean hid in the cave or something. Who knows? But anyway, I don't know if they had thoughts of making it Back to the Future 4. I don't know if that's going to be happening. But anyway, probably the best trilogy. The first one's the best one of all time. My all-time favorite movie of all time is the original Back to the Future, and of course this comes in number 2, and 2 comes in number 3. But this is the best trilogy, and it winds down the trilogy of Back to the Future series, and good family friendly movie. And yeah, I highly recommend Back to the Future 3, and I recommend the whole series, especially the first one. And it's, it's amazing because the tropes are still used today. I know people that are younger than me. They're half my age, and they're using today's. So it's dated. It stands the test of time because people still use it. Anyway, this is Johnny 2B standing off. Have a good night.